So I just filmed a video about my new bookshelf, which you can see here to my left, and it looks quite a lot like my old bookshelf. It's just a little bit bigger, and it has some different detailing and some awesome spikes, spires, whatever you'd like to call them. It's kind of fence-like, but what I had done is I went into a thrift store here in Ottawa, here in Nepean, and I was looking at the books, and I collected an armful of books, and I was on my way to cash when I noticed this bookshelf. So I carried the books up to cash and said, hold on a minute, I'm getting a bookshelf as well. But I thought I would show you the books I picked up. They've got a deal where the paperbacks are either 99 cents each, or you can get 5 for $4. So when I'm getting more than one, I usually try to get the 5 so that I can get that 5 for $4, because it just makes sense. I went in grabbing random things, just things that looked interesting, because I was in the mood to shop for books. So I've picked up something by Simone Signoret, Nostalgia Isn't What It Used to Be. And the Los Angeles Times says it's witty, ironic, fascinating, unsparing in its candor. And this is in a Penguin edition. Obviously been sitting on a shelf somewhere in sunlight, because the spine has faded nearly to white, but you can tell that it was once orange, and the title is actually on the spine. So the back says it's an autobiography. It's provocative, passionate, intelligent, and witty. Simone has led and continues to lead several lives, French, half Jewish, born in Germany. She is not only an actress, but also a political activist, a wife, and a mother. With amazing frankness, she highlights her roles in celebrated films. It goes on to list the films. Her marriage to singer and actor Yves Montand, her trip to Russia, and her meeting with Nikita Khrushchev. Her life in New York and Hollywood, and above all, her friendships with famous people, including Lillian Hellman, Arthur Miller, and Marilyn Monroe, of whom she draws a compassionate and already much talked of portrait. Nostalgia may not be what it once was, but Simone Signoret is still a star, and her autobiography is a star performance from first page to last. This is an autobiography. I have never heard of this woman. I'm sure a lot of you, or some of you at least, will have, because you'll be older than me and you'll have pop culture references and knowledge that I don't have. But I bought it kind of on face value, on this interesting cover here, on the fact that it's a penguin, and on the fact that I do like to read autobiographies, especially when they touch on a person's relationship with other famous people. I'll be especially interested in reading what she has to say about her relationship with Marilyn Monroe. I also came across the Penguin Book of Canadian Short Stories, edited by Wayne Grady. And I'm just going to check the publication date in here, 1981. I was right in thinking this would be the 80s, based on the cover. And we've got Susanna Moody, Margaret Atwood, Alice Munro, Mordecai Richler, Gabrielle Roy, Margaret Lawrence, Stephen Leacock, Jack Hoggins, and 20 others. And I recognize most of the names except for Jack Hoggins. And of course the 20 others, because that's not names, but I recognize most of the names here. I'll be interested in getting into this. There's probably some stories in here that I haven't read, but I'm willing to bet that I've read at least half of what's in here, just through reading other short story collections and through literature courses in my undergrad, and just through reading kind of on my own and discovering. Then we've got something that appears to be a textbook. It was my last book that I threw in. I thought it could be interesting. It's called Leaders and Elites by William A. Welsh. It's a political science textbook from the University of Iowa. We've got stamps in the front here. Please do not write in this book. It is on loan and must be returned. Yeah. There's not even like a cancellation stamp in here or anything to signify that it was withdrawn from the library permanently. There's just those stamps in there. So it looks like this textbook is going to talk about kind of the notion of a leader. It says here some classical contemporary notions. We've got some other chapter titles here as well. There's not really a synopsis. Methods of analysis and research on political leaders and elites. Approaches and data in research. System types and career types. Change in political leadership in socialist systems. Yeah, so this is quite an old textbook. We're looking at 1973. So that should be an interesting kind of Cold War synopsis. Journey back in time. I found some Trollope as well. Anthony Trollope, Elia's Angel. If I'm mispronouncing that, please let me know. This is just something that I picked up. I haven't done any research on it. I think I've read some Trollope in the past. It's possible. I can't remember what, but I think I may have tried to dip into one of his books as a teenager. This is an Oxford World Classics edition. It's not a bad edition. The font is on the large size. And this is from 1986. And here's the book that got me started pulling the paperbacks off the shelf. It's a Virgo modern classic. Betty Miller, On the Side of the Angels. I own 3 books in these Virgo modern classics. This collection of, or rather these editions, are all books by women. And they come in these nice little green paperbacks. I've got a couple and I am going to put this on my shelf. They're kind of hidden behind the Winning of Popular Government there. This one I bought on face value on the fact that it's this edition. But it is a novel. Don't forget the prisoners of peace, the people who've had to live battened down all their lives pretending to conform, pretending to be what they aren't, and that applies to most of us. Honor Carmichael and her 2 young children are uprooted to Linfield, where her husband Colin, a dapper small-town doctor, is stationed in the RAMC hospital. She is visited by her sister Claudia, whose fiancé Andrew wants to be invalided out of the army, whilst Andrew dismisses himself as damaged good. Colin becomes absorbed by the petty feuds and power games of uniformed life, most particularly with the arrival of Captain Harrett, a commando and the CO's current favourite. Apparently peripheral to his male pirouetting, Honor and Claudia are nevertheless deeply affected by this war. For its threats to notion of masculinity forces both women to reassess the roles they've always played. First published in 1945, this exploration of the crushing psychological effects of the war, is a sensitively and beautifully told story, perfectly drawn. And that's a synopsis by someone called Stevie Smith. Yes, so this is a wartime novel, and it takes place somewhere in England. Small town doctor. Should be interesting. I do like a good wartime novel, especially one that was actually written during or shortly after the war, as opposed to ones that have been written in contemporary times and are reflecting on that past. I picked up a couple of children's books as well because I had these great vintage hardcovers. We have a Kim Eldrick mystery, The Long Shot. I've never heard of this specific series of mysteries. She's got a great headband and sweater here. Kim Eldrick is in deadly danger when posing as a summer camp counselor. She must try to protect a wealthy young girl from a kidnapper. It's an adventure that even Kim will never forget when she and Kevin, an attentive boys camp counselor, stalk a vicious kidnapped killer through the mountain wilderness as they search for the missing girl in The Long Shot. Fun light read by an author I've never heard of, Ginny McDonnell. Along that line, I found a Connie Blair mystery. I've also never heard of the Connie Blair mysteries, and this is The Riddle in Red by Betsy Allen. This probably had a dust jacket at some point, but we do have this rather pretty spine here. Because of that, I can't really tell you what it's about. Connie braced herself to try the window, praying it wasn't locked. Illustration there. Grosset and Dunlap Publishers. This is from 1948. Okay, so those are the books that I picked up today. Secondhand books. Books unknown to me. Wonderful books that I hope to work my way through over the next weeks, months, years, who knows. I get to everything eventually.